welcome everyone.
Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to the update that you will be able to have for the Senate Bill 1 and all the things going on here at the Kentucky Department of Education. I'm joined by Rob Akers, our new Associate Commissioner, and I'm Amanda Ellis, Associate Commissioner of the Office of Teaching and Learning, and we're glad that you're able to tune in and hope that you will learn about all the things that have gone on this year in the K-12 world of education, and we will definitely be available to answer questions for you. So before I turn it over to Rob to share our purpose for today and the outcomes that are expected, just want to remind you that you can email me directly questions throughout the presentation. My email is amanda.ellis@education.ky.gov, and we will take these questions in and try to answer them live. If there are some additional background information that you're going to need or that we will need to provide for you, we will follow up in writing with the responses to the questions that you pose throughout this session. So thank you for tuning in. Rob, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. We have a good webcast lined out for you, very informative and I think very streamlined as well. The purpose of this webcast is to ensure that our EPPs and our teachers of our Ed Prep students have their Senate Bill 1 update, and this webcast does count for your 1819 Senate Bill 1 update. At this time, we'll jump right into the show. We have several distinguished panelists who are going to introduce themselves, and then we will proceed through our agenda.
Good morning. I'm Robin Hebert, the Director of the Division of Next Generation Professionals, and I'm going to share a few updates from our division with you. Senate Bill 1 of 2017 brought some significant changes to the way in which certified educators in Kentucky are evaluated. Prior to this legislation, the Professional Growth and Effectiveness System was in place, and I'm sure you are well familiar with that. With the revisions to this Kentucky statute, PGES was eliminated and the new Kentucky framework for personnel evaluation was created. Now, last year, although some districts had made changes to their evaluation processes, time was needed to promulgate a new regulation that was aligned to this new statute. So this year, fully aligned certified evaluation plans are being implemented in every Kentucky public school district. This slide shows you a graphic of the Kentucky Framework for Personnel Evaluation, and you can see that it provides a lot more flexibility for districts than the former PGES provided. Although the framework defines things like performance criteria and the 4 measures for most roles like teachers, principals, and other professionals, districts do have increased flexibility to determine evidence that are required and also the method for determining the summative rating. Some key documents that you'll be familiar with are still used. As you can see here, the Kentucky Framework for Teaching, the Kentucky Specialist Framework, and the Principal Standards are still foundational documents for evaluating certified personnel. Since the new regulation was finalized, KDE staff have been assisting districts as they make revisions to their certified evaluation plans. It is important for local CEPs to be aligned to the revised statute and regulation, and also for districts to have adequate time to fully communicate these new plans and processes for evaluation with their certified educators. So in addition to the face-to-face or online support provided by KDE, we also have a wealth of information and resources that is available on our website, including the graphic that you saw on the last slide.
All right, so Robin, can you tell us what is the new teaching and learning career pathway and how it relates to Kentucky's effort to provide all students with equitable access to effective educators?
Sure, Rob, I'll be glad to provide you an update on that. In 2015, Kentucky submitted its plan for providing all students equitable access to effective educators, and this plan went to the U.S. Department of Education. It included strategies to strengthen recruitment, development, and retention of Kentucky's educator workforce. Since then, KDE has developed a series of equity labs to both raise awareness and provide assistance to our education partners that are committed to equity through effective talent management and other things. These face-to-face labs were hosted by KDE in regions across the state during the last year. Because of the positive response that we received, We plan to provide these sessions in a virtual format for anyone who is unable to attend. The first Equity Lab is now available free of charge to anyone in iDrive Digital, and the second virtual lab is currently in development. We do plan to have additional Equity Labs in the future that are focused on equity-related topics such as culturally responsive instruction. Now, you ask about the teaching and learning pathway and how it relates to our equity plan. And one important strategy that we're really excited about is this pathway. One important goal for us is to increase the number and quality of educators in Kentucky's pipeline. So we're now offering a new career and technical education pathway for high school students who are interested in careers in education. Many of our schools and districts consider it an excellent grow your own type of initiative. In this current school year, more than 70 high schools are offering the pathway, and more than 1,200 students are enrolled in some pathway course. The pathway does have a 4-course sequence, 3 of which are required, that you can see there on the slide. And the 4th course provides students the opportunity to follow their own area of interest in education by selecting options like a clinical experience or an AP or dual credit in their intended teaching discipline. In support of this new pathway, Kentucky is also a state affiliate for Educators Rising, and that's what they call the CTSO, or the Career and Technical Student Organization for the Education Pathway. Each year, KDE hosts an annual conference and competition to provide students in this pathway the opportunity to network with other current and future educators and to showcase their skills in 20 competitions. They can also qualify to go on to the National Educators Rising competition. So the pathway is a really important aspect of our equity plan because we're really trying to increase the number and quality of educators who are in the pipeline.
Okay. All right, next up, Sylvia.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Starkey, and I'm the policy advisor for the Division of Learning Services, and I'm going to just provide an update on the Ready to Read Act. You may have heard it called several different things. Sometimes you will hear it called the Ready to Read Act, which is its actual title, or you may hear it called House Bill 187, or just the Dyslexia Bill is some of the ways that it's been referred to in the past. So in this bill, it actually created KRS Chapter 158, and it defined dyslexia. So in that, it defined dyslexia as a specific learning disability that was neurological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition and poor spelling and decoding abilities. The difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction, and it has secondary consequences which may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede the growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So the bill also required KDE to develop a dyslexia toolkit which targets grades K through 3, and we are actually working on that with CCLD, which is the Collaborative Center for Literacy Development, to complete that work. The toolkit is going to include evidence-based practices designed specifically for students with dyslexia, characteristics of targeted instruction for dyslexia, guidance on developing instructional plans, best practices towards meaning-centered reading and writing. It'll have structured multisensory and literacy approaches to teaching language and reading skills, and some suggested professional development activities, and that toolkit will be available on the KDE website in January of 2019. It's still being developed now. But the bill also required KDE to collaborate with outside partners to improve professional development related to dyslexia. It also allows districts to adopt dyslexia policies related to identification and strategies to assist identified students in grades kindergarten through 3rd. And if you are looking for suggestions for the components of those dyslexia policies and the requirements for reporting to KDE, you can find that in the legislation, which is in your web links. And it also requires districts that adopt dyslexia policies to report to KDE annually. The bill also requires KDE to conduct a 3-year study project on dyslexia, and we will be presenting findings of those dyslexia policies to the Interim Joint Committee by November 1st, following the conclusion of that study. It also amended KRS 158.305, it changed the term scientifically based research to evidence-based research, which was a big change. And it also requires KDE to present survey data to the Interim Joint Committee annually. And so that survey data is on the types of evidence-based research interventions which are being implemented by districts in reading, writing, mathematics, and behavior for kindergartens through grade 3. It also requires post-secondary institutions offering teacher preparation programs for regular education to include instruction on dyslexia, and that is the requirement is by the 2019-2020 academic year. So it also talks about how post-secondary instruction in dyslexia would be required for elementary and secondary regular education teacher prep programs, and it must include the definition and characteristics of dyslexia, processes for identifying dyslexia, evidence-based interventions and accommodations for dyslexia and other orders which are defined like aphasia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia, and it also and other related literacy and learning challenges. And it also has core elements of our RTI, response to intervention RTI framework for addressing reading, writing, math, and behavior, which includes universal screenings, evidence-based research interventions, progress monitoring of the effectiveness of the interventions on student performance, database decision-making, procedures related to determining intervention effectiveness on student performance, and determining the need to continue, alter, or discontinue interventions or conduct further evaluation of student needs, and application and implementation of response to intervention in dyslexia's 16 instructional practices in the classroom setting.
All right, next up is Jennifer. Can you give us the latest updates regarding any changes to Kentucky academic standards?
I'd be happy to. My name's Jennifer Fraker. I'm the Director of Program Standards, so we get to talk about my favorite thing, standards. So, wow, there's a lot going on in the standards world. So let's start by revisiting where we left off last year and briefly discuss the requirements of Senate Bill 1. So Senate Bill 1 required that beginning last school year and every 6 years thereafter, an updated standards implementation process must be in place for reviewing academic standards and the alignment of corresponding assessments. So really what this did was it codified many of the things that KDE was already doing. So the KBE had to establish standards and assessment review committees. These were grade banded, so really looking at our teachers to be here in Kentucky, the experts on what our standards should look like. The one thing that was new to Senate Bill 1 was the requirement for a Standards and Assessment Process Review Committee, and that's just 3 members, including the commissioner, that are appointed by our Board of Education. And really, they're not looking at the content of the standards, but rather whether we had enough stakeholder input and that the process was followed in line with Senate Bill 1. So, putting this in perspective, you'll see a timeline that kind of encapsulates what we've been doing. And starting last school year, you can see reading and writing. You've probably seen the headlines around that, and we talked a little bit about that last year, as well as math. So they began the process along with physical and health education, otherwise known as practical living career studies. Those have been pulled out just for clarity around what they actually were. And then computer science. So looking at this year, where we stand is we actually had a first reading of those standards that I just mentioned at the Kentucky Board of Education. We're going again in October for a second reading, and then begins the regulatory process. So what this means is that effective tentatively the 2019-20 school years, those standards will actually be adopted into law. Additionally, you've probably seen headlines around involvement around social studies. So that work actually began in January, much anticipated, as everyone knows. And actually, you guys will be the first to know that starting this week, you can look for a press release to, we welcome your feedback around public comment. The standards will be released on a KDE website, and you can review those, and we would love to hear from you and get your input on the direction that the teams have taken in terms of revising those standards. So if all goes well, we'll look at taking those again before the Kentucky Board of Education later this winter, with potential for implementation also during the 2019-20 school year. So you can see, if you look over in the 19-20 school year column, lots of implementation, so definitely some impact. And then beginning for world languages will begin the process for revision and development for world languages in 1920. So then the impact in 2021 is looking at implementing assessments. As you remember, we said that standards and assessments must be aligned. So looking at assessments for reading, writing, and mathematics in 2021, along with social studies. And then again, implementing world languages. And then even, it seems like we just redid this, but looking at the revision for science standards. So looking then at the future of 21-22, looking at implementation of science standards, and then beginning the assessment process, but also beginning the revision for art standards, which takes us out to 22-23, looking at the implementation of science assessments and also implementation of art standards. So that kind of gives us a timeline of where we're headed. Again, lots going on.
All right, next up we have Landon. Landon, where do we stand on the financial literacy and career studies?
Thanks, Rob. I'm Landon Tingle. I'm the policy advisor for the Office of Career and Technical Education. The financial literacy and career studies standards are a couple things that are being updated. The financial literacy standards are currently being developed. They will be implemented for students entering freshman year in the 2020-2021 school year. Writing teams will begin development during the 2018-2019 school year. A guidance document is currently being developed by the Kentucky Department of Education to help local districts. As for the career study standards, these revised standards are targeted for implementation during the 2021-2022 school year. Next, I will discuss secondary to post-secondary pathway alignment. The Work Ready Scholarship opportunity provides extended opportunities for career and technical education. The Office of Career and Technical Education will focus on development of secondary to post-secondary pathway alignments and provide models of aligned secondary to post-secondary programs of study. As for pathway changes, in 2017-2018, the previous school year, those programs of study are available on the KDE website. No pathway changes in the 2018 to 2019 school year will take place. The present program of studies will remain the same for the 2018-2019 school year. The Office of Career and Technical Education's Career Pathways Project program of studies will be released in September of this year for the 2019-2020 school year. Secondary to post-secondary pathway models are currently being developed. KRS 158.6453 encompasses the changes from the Senate Bill 1 in 2017. Changes in statute incentivizes students to pursue career pathways and take industry certification, credential, or licensure exams. KRS require the Kentucky Board of Education to promulgate regulations establishing the performance-based experience, eligibility requirements, and weighted reimbursement amounts. This work will begin soon. Accountability and CTE. The new system emphasizes career exploration, career counseling, attainment of industry certificates, work-based learning experiences, and dual or articulated credit. KDE is working to establish dual credit and articulated credit opportunities for students.
All right, next we have Michael. And Michael, what can you tell us will be tested this year, and give us any updates you may have on Kentucky's new accountability regulation and transition readiness?
Well, good morning. I'm Michael Hackworth. I am a program manager in the Office of Assessment Accountability. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and I'm happy to answer your questions regarding assessment and accountability. First off, the Office of Assessment Accountability has recently released a 2019 spring testing plan that I can share with you all that will be a valuable resource. As you can tell from this slide, we have created a table that lists the content areas and the grade levels assessments occur for those content areas. Grades 3 through 8 will continue to assess this year as they have in the past, with no change in the way the assessment is administered. High school, however, is a different story. We are moving away from the end-of-course assessments, which were given in English 2, Biology, Algebra 2, and U.S. History, and will move toward an end-of-span assessment that will be offered in grades 10 and 11. This year, the end-of-span assessments will be field-tested in the content areas of reading and mathematics. Reading and mathematics will be assessed at grade 10, and science, social studies, and writing will be at grade 11. The high school social studies end-of-span assessment will not be developed until standards are revised. The college admissions exam will be administered to students in grades 10 and 11 as written in Senate Bill 1. KDE is currently going through a bid process for what that college admissions assessment will be, and further information will be announced very soon. As far as the question goes regarding the new accountability regulation, Kentucky now has a regulation that has completely gone through the regulatory process in the state of Kentucky. The new regulation is 703 KAR 5:270. I have provided you with a handout that is titled Kentucky's Accountability at a Glance that will help you understand the new system and the indicators within it. The new indicators in the new accountability system are proficiency, which comes from student performance on reading and mathematics assessments; separate academic indicator, which comes from student performance on science, social studies, and writing assessments; growth, and it is measured at the elementary and middle school levels and is focused on student growth in reading and mathematics; achievement gap closure will focus on gaps in all content areas, including reading, mathematics, science, social studies, and writing; transition readiness, measured at all 3 grade spans, and I will dive a little deeper into this indicator in just a minute; graduation rate, this indicator is measured at the high school level and uses the 4- and 5-year cohort in accountability; and finally, we have opportunity and access. This indicator is focused on providing a rich curricula, equitable access to gifted and talented services and advanced coursework, and school quality and safety. The last thing I would like to talk about is one of the indicators in the new system, which is transition readiness. Transition readiness will be measured at elementary, middle, and high school levels. To help explain transition readiness, I have provided you with another handout titled Transition Readiness that you can review to help you understand this indicator. For elementary and middle school, students will have to meet a benchmark on a composite score that combines student performance in reading, mathematics, science, social studies, and writing. Elementary transition readiness will be determined at grade 5, and middle school will be determined at grade 8. For high school, in order to be transition ready, a student must first earn a high school diploma and meet either academic or career ready. In addition, if a student is an EL student and received EL services in high school, then they would need to meet English language proficiency through the WIDA Access 2.0 exam. So let's dive deeper into what it means to be academic, career, or English learner ready. To become academic ready, there are several ways a student can demonstrate. This slide shows what options a student has to become academic ready. They can earn the CPE benchmarks on a college admissions exam, or by earning a grade of B or higher in each course on 6 or more hours of KDE approved dual credit, or by scoring a 3+ on exams in 2 or more AP courses, or by scoring a 5+ on 2 or more IB exams, or by meeting the benchmarks on 2 or more Cambridge Advanced International exams, or by completing a combination of academic readiness indicators just mentioned. Then at the bottom, there is an important statement to draw your attention to that is a requirement to become academic ready. And this reads, as a student works towards the achievement of academic readiness, demonstration shall include 1 quantitative reasoning or natural sciences, and 1 written or oral communication, arts and humanities, or social and behavioral sciences learning outcomes. When it comes to career readiness, there are several ways that a student can achieve it. This slide shows what options a student can take to become career ready. First, they can become career ready by meeting the benchmark on an industry certification that is improved by the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board on an annual basis, or scoring at or above the benchmark on the Career and Technical Education End-of-Program Assessment for articulated credit. This is formally known as the COSA exam, or earning a grade of B or higher in each course on 6 or more hours of KDE approved CTE dual credit, or completing a KDE Labor Cabinet approved apprenticeship, or completing a KDE approved alternate process to verify exceptional work experience. And then the last piece of transition readiness at the high school is centered around English readiness. For any student who received EL services during high school, they must meet criteria for English language proficiency by the time they graduate. To meet the criteria, a student must meet the benchmarks on the Access 2.0 assessment given by WIDA. The score is a 4.5 on Tier B or C. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me at michael.hackworth2@education.ky.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dawn, and she's going to share with us the Council for Post-Secondary Education's landscape for colleges and universities moving forward.
Thank you, Rob. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak on the wonderful and exciting initiatives that we have going on at the Council. This presentation is a high-level overview of some of those key initiatives. I am Dr. Dawn Shanine Offit, and I am a Senior Associate in Academic Affairs for the Council. First, I would like to discuss the strategic agenda, which frames our work at CPE. The Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education is Kentucky's statewide post-secondary and adult education coordinating agency. Kentucky is directed by law to periodically develop the strategic agenda to satisfy a number of purposes. 1, to identify statewide priorities and a vision for facilitating long-term economic growth in Kentucky through improvements in educational attainment. 2, to set performance goals for students, employers, and employees that reflect our high expectations. And 3, to sustain this commitment to continuous improvement by remaining accountable and transparent to the public and employers that we serve. The new strategic agenda, Stronger by Degrees, is a plan that will guide post-secondary policy and practice from 2016 through 2021 toward its ambitious goal of raising the percentage of Kentuckians with a high-quality post-secondary degree or certificate to 60% by the year of 2030, which would be up from its current level of educational attainment of 45%. In raw numbers, that would mean that about 300,000 additional Kentuckians will have earned a post-secondary credential between 2015 and 2030. The strategic agenda has 3 focus areas. Opportunity relates to encouraging more people, particularly low-income and underrepresented minorities, to take advantage of post-secondary opportunities. Success addresses increasing first to second year retention rates, 3- and 6-year graduation rates, and degrees conferred. Impact urges the creation of inclusive and supportive campus environments by increasing cultural competency, recruiting, retaining, and promoting diverse faculty and management, and ensuring equity and inclusion campus-wide. In other words, opportunity focuses on getting students to college. Success focuses on getting students through college. Impact focuses on the effects that stem from increased post-secondary opportunity and success. College readiness is the level of preparation a student needs to enter a credit-bearing course without need of remediation. College readiness indicates that these students can succeed in credit-bearing courses in college. Succeed is defined as completing entry-level courses with a course grade of C or higher. Kentucky's system-wide benchmarks of readiness guarantee students access to credit-bearing coursework without the need for remediation or intervention programming. This section will discuss the work CPE is doing to promote college readiness. The college readiness indicators. In order for entering college freshmen to be placed in the appropriate general education content area courses, they must meet the benchmarks for college readiness as outlined by one of the placement assessments. College readiness indicators are an agreed upon set of readiness benchmarks used by all public post-secondary institutions. The indicators of readiness guarantee that the student can enter any of Kentucky's public, community, and technical colleges or universities without need of remediation within the 3 essential skill content areas: mathematics, English writing, and/or reading. Dual credit versus dual enrollment. While some states use these terms interchangeably, Kentucky has defined the difference between dual credit and dual enrollment in legislation under Kentucky Revised Statute 164.002. In order to encourage students to capitalize on taking dual credit opportunities, qualified students are encouraged to take dual credit courses by capitalizing on this opportunity with the dual credit scholarship program. Qualifications include that students must be a Kentucky resident, enrolled in a Kentucky public, private, or homeschool in grades 11 or 12, and be enrolled or approved for enrollment in an approved dual credit class at a participating Kentucky college or university. They must also complete a 30-minute college success counseling session each year that the scholarship is awarded. They must complete the application, and upon approval, scholarships will be dispersed by the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority directly to the student's participating college or university. To promote and monitor dual credit, the dual credit policy was created. The dual credit policy, implemented in 2016, provides students access to 3 general education courses and 3 CTE courses. It guides the ways that students will increase their access to dual credit programming and provides guiding principles and evidence-based practices to support and maintain the quality of both the faculty and the coursework. It outlines the accountability system for dual credit as well as the scholarship, and it designates the Dual Credit Advisory Council to monitor the minimum dual credit offerings of post-secondary institutions so that all eligible students have access to dual credit coursework. The College Admissions Regulation. The most current amendments to the college admissions regulation include requiring that traditional high school graduates admitted to a public university have a high school grade point average of 2.5 on a 4.0 scale. Students with a GPA between 2.0 and 2.49 may enroll after signing a learning contract with the institution that specifies the advising, mentoring, tutoring, and support service expectations for both the student and the institution, the learning goals of the student participation requirements in a financial literacy program, the process by which student progress will be monitored, and the specific length of the learning contract. The amendments to this regulation also include the implementation of a co-requisite model. A co-requisite course is a credit-bearing course that includes enhanced academic supports, such as additional hours of instruction, tutoring, mentoring, or advising. Moving toward the co-requisite model of remediation will assist students in progressing to a degree more quickly outside the traditional developmental model, which is often more costly and ineffective in progressing students toward degree completion. Examples of co-requisite education models include embedded supports, paired supports, or boot camps. This slide represents course completion of college algebra and English at the comprehensive universities. Percentages are based on the number of developmental students completing a gateway course in 1 semester using the co-requisite education model. The 2-year baseline denoted in red represents students enrolled in a developmental education course that subsequently completed a gateway course within 2 years. This slide is the counterpart for our community colleges and technical colleges, and it represents the completion of college algebra and English at the community and technical college system level. Again, percentages are based on the number of developmental students completing a gateway course in one semester. The two-year baseline, again denoted in red, represents students enrolled in a developmental education course that subsequently completed the gateway course in 2 years. Diversity plans and policy. The statewide diversity policy is grounded in the premise that to truly prepare students for life and work in an increasingly diverse society, public institutions shall develop a plan to embrace diversity, which at a minimum addresses the components listed on the screen. In 1982, the Council on Higher Education developed the Commonwealth of Kentucky Higher Education Desegregation Plan in response to a U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights finding that the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in violation of the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, had failed to eliminate the vestiges of its former de jure racially dual system of public higher education. For the next 25 years, CHE and CPE focused the desegregation plan and its subsequent revisions on increasing the enrollment and success of African American students, increasing the number of African American employees on campus, and enhancing Kentucky State University, with later revisions also focusing on improving campus climate. The CPE created the Committee on Equal Opportunities, the CEO, to provide oversight on plan implementation and ensure that diversity initiatives were a priority on Kentucky's public colleges and university campuses. In December of 2008, the Office of Civil Rights released Kentucky from the remedial planning process, but CPE sought to continue its diversity efforts and initiatives. CPE has a statutorily mandated responsibility in the area of diversity and equal opportunities, which requires that CPE postpone the approval of any new academic program at a state post-secondary educational institution if the institution has not met the equal educational opportunity goals established by CPE. As such, the CPE directed the CEO, in collaboration with the public institutions, to develop a process that would help to ensure that the significant progress made in promoting diversity was preserved and further enhanced throughout public post-secondary education. As a result, the first Kentucky Public Post-Secondary Education Diversity Policy and Framework for Institution Diversity Plan Development was adopted by the CEO and CPE in August and September of 2010, respectively. Under this policy, CPE set forth a very broad definition of diversity, and institutions were required to create diversity plans that addressed, at a minimum, 4 areas that include student body diversity that mirrors the diversity of the Commonwealth or the institution's service area, the closing of achievement gaps, workforce diversity, and campus climate. The duration of the policy was 5 years, with review commencing during the 5th year. In this new iteration of the policy, CPE seeks to build on the strong foundation cultivated over 30 years ago and further integrate the new degree program approval process and the statewide diversity policy into one seamless framework upon which equal educational opportunity goals can be set. Strategies to obtain those goals can be developed, adopted, and implemented, and institutional progress can be evaluated. In addition, CPE continues to affirm diversity as a core value in its strategic planning process. As this policy and CPE's strategic agenda are completely aligned with identical headings, opportunity, success, and impact, with common metrics and with common strategies and appropriate references and acknowledgments. It's also key to note that when we use the term diversity, we're not just speaking of race and ethnicity, we're also including low income. So to implement the policy, campuses are required to create a diversity plan to address the goals and strategies in 3 focus areas and outline an appropriate plan for assessment. The diversity plans will be scored using the following metrics. Opportunity, whose objective is to improve undergraduate enrollment of Black, American, Hispanic students and underrepresented minorities. Success, whose objective is to improve first to second year retention rates, 6-year graduation rates, and degrees conferred to underrepresented minorities and low-income students. And impact, whose objective is to increase, retain, and promote diverse faculty and staff, promote equity and inclusion of faculty and staff and students, and increase cultural competency of faculty, staff, and students, and monitor the campus environment. Plans are submitted for review annually in March, and institutions that do not meet the standards of their rubric will lose automatic eligibility to offer new academic programs. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about performance funding. There are two performance funding models, one for public universities and one for KCTCS. Both models are similar in that they feature an outcomes-based funding model that distributes 100% of allocable general fund appropriations for institutional operations using rational criteria. 70% of the funds are distributed based on performance, which includes student success outcomes and course completion. 30% of the funds are distributed in support of vital campus operations, which include operation and maintenance of facilities, institutional support, and academic support. Items to note are as follows. All public four-year institutions included in a common performance pool, and all KCTCS institutions are in a separate performance pool. There are safeguards in place to ensure research and comprehensive sectors are on equal footing at the initial implementation. Both models include adjustments to minimize the impact on small institutions with low or declining enrollment. And the models employ hold harmless and stop-loss provisions in early years of implementation. In order to meet the student success metrics for the performance funding model, Kentucky post-secondary institutions must increase retention and progression of students, increase the number of degrees and credentials earned by all types of students, grow the number of degrees and credentials that garner higher salaries upon graduation, including STEM plus H fields and other high-wage, high-demand fields, and close achievement gaps by increasing the number of degrees and credentials earned by low-income, minority, and underprepared students. So for more information on any of these topics, please feel free to visit our website at cpe.ky.gov, or you can contact me directly at dawn.offit@ky.gov.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. I want to thank everyone for their participation today. We have yet to receive any questions from the live webcast. However, if you have any follow-up questions, please contact Eve Profit at ky.gov, and we'll be happy to get you some answers on that. Again, thank you to our panel for sharing all this important information. We gave you a lot to think about. Please feel free to send us follow-up questions, and we'll get you a good answer on that. Again, the handouts and the presentation from today have been sent to the deans and will be sent again along with the link for this webcast recording. Handouts include links to key components addressed in today's webinar. We appreciate your participation and hope you have a great afternoon.